here we are. I'm joined by Arlene Phillips for our curving conversation. It's amazing to have Arlene with us today. It was actually meant to be the first day of rehearsals for our production of Grease, so it's wonderful, Arlene, we're together by the power of Zoom. At least we're connected over the technology. Should we kick off and just talk a little bit about your childhood and growing up in Manchester and when you sort of started firstly getting interested in theatre and the arts?
Yes. I grew up in Manchester in a household, older brother, younger sister, mum and dad, not in a wealthy house by any means at all. It was a real struggle. My dad was a barber, and my mum used to help in schools at break times, serving the milk. But it was a happy childhood. And the thing that my parents loved was music and dance. We had an old gramophone and we used to play every Tchaikovsky, every piece of ballet music. And my father was a big Chaplin fan. So even when we were small, we were, young, we were taken to see Limelight. We were taken, if we were to see anything, to dance. And one year, the Russian dancers came to the Free Trade Hall in Manchester, and there was this incredible performance with ballet dancers, Georgian state dancers, musicians, every kind of dance. And it was that moment that identified for me that I had to dance. And from that moment on, I was at the library all the time, every library book I could get that had dance in it. I just devoted myself to dance and managed to go to ballet classes. And it was, being poor sometimes makes you very brave, because every ballet book, they've all got beautiful pink ballet shoes. And we went to buy my ballet shoes to go to ballet class. And my mother didn't have enough money in her purse. And at that time, you couldn't just pull out a credit card. You either had the money or you didn't. And so we were offered some ballet shoes that were on sale, bright emerald green. Talk about the Wizard of Oz. They looked like Emerald City. And of course, they were half price. A pair fit me. And so the first time I went into ballet class, all the girls were standing around in their pink ballet shoes, and I walked in my green ballet shoes, and every head sort of went. Everyone stared at my green ballet shoes, and my instinct was to run away and cry. But I was so determined that if I wanted to dance, I was going to have to face up to being different. And at that moment, I walked in, head held high, and I remember that moment of just following everybody and putting my arm out and starting to dance. And that was it. That was going to be my life. And sometimes...
And how old were you then, Arlene? How old were you when you put on your emerald green ballet shoes and took Manchester by storm?
8 years old.
8 years old, wow.
But it was something I'd always wanted. So now I had the chance, finally we got enough money together for me to go to ballet class, and I wasn't going to waste that chance. And so how long were you, what was the sort of journey from 8 years old going to the first ballet class, then sort of making the move from Manchester to London and starting to pursue dance professionally? Did you always think you were going to do it professionally, or was it, as a working class person where you think, well, this might just be a hobby that you enjoy? I knew I was going to dance. I knew I had to dance. It was like life itself. It was breathing. It was everything. And I planned to study, and eventually, at the age of 16, because you could leave school at 16, I wanted to go and study in London. And auditions were coming up. And I was 15 and a half at the time, and there was a teacher from the Royal Ballet School coming to our school to look for future students. And at that moment, that precise moment, my mother got leukemia and passed away when I was 15, all within 3 months. So it was complete and utter turmoil, but I knew that I could not go away. My sister at the time was 12 years old. My father wasn't well, and my brother left school to go out to work. So all hope of being a dancer had gone. And all I wanted to do was go and study in Manchester on a full-time course, because there was one at the school I was at. We hadn't any money. And so I went to Manchester County Council, who I knew gave scholarships to all those students going to London. And I asked if I could get a scholarship, a grant, to go to the school that I was at in Manchester. And they said, no, we don't give any grants to any of the schools in Manchester. And I said, but it will cost you less money. You have to do this. I remember sitting in the town hall and just pleading with the panel. Anyway, I did. I got a grant and I studied and I lived in Manchester, did 4 years of study, every genre, became a teacher, happily teaching, thought that was my life. And my teacher sent me to London for 1 week to this place that had opened called the Dance Centre. It had lots of different classes, American jazz, different teachers, things I hadn't done before. And she sent me for 1 week. First time I'd been to London, first time I got on a train to London. Stayed at the YMCA, the YM Young Women's YMCA in Tottenham Court Road. And I never went home again. Wow. I fell in love with the classes. I got a scholarship from the teacher that I adored and loved, Molly Malloy. I got a job working in a cafe. I got a place to live, babysitting and living in for Ridley Scott. And I told my family and my teacher I would pay back every penny, and that I couldn't come home, because if I did, I would never have come back again to London. I wouldn't have had the courage. The only way I had the courage was by staying and changing my life. And I was 22 at the time. I've been teaching. That's how I got to London.
Gosh, that's extraordinary. All the times we've worked together, and obviously there's so much time in rehearsals where we have a bit of a chat or a gossip, but I've never heard that story. I mean, it's beautiful and very humbling and very moving to hear. Thank you. So where did the sort of desire to choreograph, and was there a period when you sort of, those early days in London, when you performed, or were you always teaching and then sort of moving into choreography?
I started studying and performing. I did 1 or 2 small television shows. I was always the girl. I knew that I was the strongest dancer in the room. But at that time, they were looking for kind of slender, pretty girls that weren't like me. I was short, strong, tough, ballsy. But I did actually start working as a dancer, and it's what I dreamed of. And one day Ridley asked me if I would choreograph a commercial for him. He said, you know, it's really easy. It's just a milkmaid, a farmer, and a dancing cow. The milkmaid was Miriam Margulies, and it was for Lion's Made ice cream. So I put together this hop, skip, and jump, and it was a lot of fun. I hadn't intended to be a choreographer. And then 3 weeks later, he said, I've got another commercial. Will you work on it? It's for something called Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper wasn't in England at that time. And they were known in America for these massive, huge dance commercials. And Ridley had been asked to direct 2 of these commercials, and he asked me to do them. And the Americans were like, well, who is she? He said, oh, no, she's amazing. And the first big commercial, well, both of them were made at Pinewood, but the first one had 25 dancers. So there I was, a choreographer. auditioning dancers. The second one had the Royal Ballet. It starred Wayne Sleep. And my whole life changed because suddenly I became a choreographer of TV commercials, even going to America to make another 10, 12 Dr. Pepper commercials. And so I became a choreographer almost by default.
Wow. And is that something you dreamed of? Had you imagined that ambition, or was it literally you're suddenly, you know, with a dancing cow and Miriam Margolyes, and then suddenly you're a choreographer, and then you've not looked back? Was that part of your plan?
I had never thought about being a choreographer, not for a minute. However, something did click with me, and that is when I was making commercials and teaching in between, I had enough money to go out, go to the clubs, go and, you know, kind of see what's happening in London. And in London, it was bursting in the 70s, you know, with there was shops opening like Swanky Modes that had the most amazing lycra dresses. The clubs were full of dance, people dancing. And yet on television, I was seeing a lot of 5'6" pretty blondes doing a lot of smiling and clicking. And I thought, no, this isn't right. In my classes, I'm teaching something else. I'm teaching use your power, use your sexuality, use your soul, dance in a different way, give it everything, like, and fill dance with a life force and be adventurous and put together what's happening in the streets and in the clubs with dance. And so because of that, I got my best students and got together a group of dancers, call them Hot Gossip because I wanted everyone to talk about them, and with very sexy clothes, first of all, buying lots of different lingerie and dyeing it different colors, made everyone think they had lots of costumes. And powerful and sexy. And for 3 years, we had a 1 night a week gig in London in a club called Monkberry's. And beyond that, where I thought they were going to be really famous, we couldn't go. It didn't happen. And I called TV producers and directors, and they all went, no, it's too sexy for television. And so at that point, I just decided I'm going to give up the group and continue my life as a choreographer of TV commercials, and and teaching, and that's what my life will be.
And so then what happened? Because obviously Hot Gossip took off and they sort of helped define the 80s. I mean, as you say, with the look and the movements and that sort of sense of empowerment, you really did help define the 80s.
Well, interestingly, when we did get to do television, we were so beyond anything that had been seen on television before. The director of a show that was going to be called the Kenny Everett Video Show saw a photograph of Hot Gossip, looking very sexy, I have to say, and he decided this was the group he wanted for the TV show. He had never seen us dance. He didn't really care if we could dance or not. He said, I have to have Hot Gossip. And he said to his producer, find me Arlene Phillips, find me Hot Gossip, because of course I'd given it up by then. And there was no Hot Gossip appearing anywhere. His wonderful PA, Jackie Byford, found me, and then I brought the group in, and we appeared on the Kenny Everett Video Show. Well, it was on early, 6:45, when Hot Gossip went on in the evening, and the so-called protector of public morals, self-appointed Mary Whitehouse, saw Hot Gossip on television, was so outraged that she, brought it up in the Houses of Parliament. We, of course, made front page history. Every newspaper, every single one had a picture of Hot Gossip. And so what appeared to be an overnight sensation of Hot Gossip really wasn't. It was a lot of hard work, but people thought it was overnight that group came into being.
Wow, that's incredible. And then, so how did you make the jump into theatre then, having never, sort of had this ambition of being a choreographer, suddenly you're doing all these commercials, then taking the world by storm with Hot Gossip, and then how do you get into the theatre? Because that's, of course, how many of us know you and your work.
Well, Hot Gossip became quite notorious. And so because of that, I was appearing and the group on lots of television shows, and it was non-stop being asked to do things. And Alan Carr, who was about to produce a film called Can't Stop the Music with the Village People.
Not the comedian then?
No. Legendary. He produced Grease with Robert Bigwood, a famous American both TV producer and film producer, made a decision to make the film of Can't Stop the Music with the Village People. And he was in a club, saw Hot Gossip, and that was it. Next step, I'm invited to Hollywood. First class. I mean, take Hot Gossip with to be in the film and make this amazing, crazy, bonkers, voted one of the 10 worst musicals ever made, with the Village People. And so I became involved in film. I was asked to do Annie immediately afterwards. But during the making of Can't Stop the Music, I had Andrew Lloyd Webber was a very close friend because he fell in love with Hot Gossip from the moment he saw them on the Kenny Everett show and in the clubs. And we became great friends. So at the end of making Can't Stop the Music, where on a week's hiatus, I had my baby daughter, then Alana, now very grown up. And when I got back at the end of the year, Andrew invited me to Sydmonton, his home, over Christmas. And there I was, baby in arms. And one morning at breakfast, we were chatting, and I told him the story of how I made this film in 1979. And the producer had asked me to learn to roller skate because he wanted an opening sequence on roller skates. So I went, fine. There I was, working on the opening sequence on my skates, 7 months pregnant. Alan asked if he could come and see what I was creating. He'd forgotten I was pregnant and came in, saw me 7 months on my skates. He said, get your skates off. I haven't insured you. No one's insured you. And I was telling Andrew this funny story about this baby in my arms. In 1982, he phoned me up and he asked, how well did you skate? I said, it was okay, before I had to take them off. And asked me if I would choreograph Starlight Express on skates.
Wow. And that must have been a phenomenal sort of process to be involved with. I remember, it was like a sort of kid coming down and seeing the production at the Apollo Victoria and just being absolutely blown away. The idea of it being completely immersive and, the actors skating around you and it being, in terms of the design, the lighting, your choreography, the whole thing seemed really sort of progressive, and it must have certainly done the early 80s when you were putting it all together.
Yeah, 1984. And, people could feel the wind of the skaters going past them or reach out and touch them. And it was really, really, really exciting. And I tried to bring the work that I had done, I had really in between 79, having Alana, right through to that early period of the 80s, I started working right at the beginning of MTV and the demand for videos. So throughout that time, this world of making videos has opened to me, and it went sort of on and on in parallel. So I was, at the time, as I look back and I realized choreographers very much struggle to work across all media, every form of where you can expose your work, that I was making commercials, television, now live theatre, music videos. It was an incredible world that I was allowed to work in.
And what was, I mean, some of those pop videos you've made are like sort of mini plays, mini musicals in themselves. I mean, working with people like Elton John, Duran Duran, Freddie Mercury. What were some of those, what were your sort of highlights from that sort of period of time? I mean, some extraordinary iconography you've created.
The thing is, because we worked, and David Mallet, who was the director of the Kenny Everett video show, his company was one of the first, or the first, I think, to make a music video for MTV, Video Killed the Radio Star. So I began working with those three directors and making videos non-stop. The thing is, those early videos, we were making it up because it was something new. It hadn't been done before. So we were creating on the spot, and it was all done so quickly. You know, one day we'd meet and put together a story for the artist. Next day, you'd meet the artist, you know, okay the video. The next day, the set builders were in, putting up the video. We were there the next day, worked all day, usually right through the night. Lucky if you got a second day. And they were all done within 3-4 days. Very little time to rehearse. Most of the choreography was done the morning of the shoot. And it was an exciting time. I mean, things happened. For instance, one, Elton John, I'm Still Standing, had a completely different story to what it was. We were definitely going to shoot in the south of France, and Elton was going to travel down the mountain onto the promenade in Nice in an open-top car with 3 dancers in the back, which I had come over from England. One was Bruno Tonioli, who was dancing for me at the time, and then 2 were Sharida and Sandy Strallen, the parents of the 4 famous Strallens. And they were going to be in the back of the car, and we were going to drive all the way down the mountain, crash into a plate glass window, sugar glass, open the video, and the 3 of them dancing. That didn't happen. The police decided it was far too dangerous.
Huh.
So I had a friend in Nice who had the biggest dance school. I said, I want all your dancers. Anyone, tell them to bring bikinis, swimsuits, shorts, anything they've got. And we all gathered on the promenade, and we got body painters, cover them in body paint to make them look unusual. And the whole day and into the next whole day, we choreographed and then shot. And because it was Elton, we were given the Negresco Hotel to use, the ballroom and the staircase. And it was just, it was something that came out of nothing. You have to be able to think on your feet. You know, working with Whitney Houston was amazing, but she was very shy on her first video, or second video actually. How will I know? Really shy, so I had to kind of really work with her to give her the confidence to move and dance in this video. By the time I got to New York to make I Want to Dance with Somebody, she was up there, yeah, show me what to do. So it's just interesting. The best, I think, or the one I had the most rehearsal for was Duran Duran, Wild Boys. And you work, like Freddie wanted to be involved every step of the way. From the minute he wanted to be part of the storytelling, completely involved. And Elton was, I'll turn up, show me what I've got to do. You know, so you always have to be prepared. Anyone who is making music videos, be prepared.
And it's fascinating hearing about all of this and the sort of gestation of Starlight Express, for example. It feels like you're describing a really rich creatively and very sort of courageous and whether it was in the television, the pop videos, the theatre world, producers and folk who are really willing and up for taking risks and trusting you as an artist. Do you feel like we've maybe lost some of that today where, I mean, certainly the period of history you're describing, I wouldn't say that comparatively today we're nearly half as gung-ho and able to sort of dive in and take the risk that perhaps you're, describing. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it's very strange because for a long time, I was just doing it. We were inventing, and I realized we were doing a lot of firsts. The first musical on roller skates, Hot Gossip. The first time that it was single camera. We shot single camera with close-ups and using a camera in a different way. First with MTV, the very first videos off the bat on MTV. And it made me think, in school, I was never first in anything. And it was interesting, but there was an excitement because you felt you could do anything. Now it feels a different world. And I think people have to do more. If you take dancers, we used amazing dancers, but there were only certain amount of genres, even though I was keen on bringing in these new moves, which no doubt I did, and changing the way people look at dance and television and demanding of that. I think now the demand on dancers, they have to do everything. And sometimes I feel that they go, so far in pushing their bodies, I sometimes even worry for them. Mm-hmm. But I feel as a director and a choreographer, I feel the producers are much more demanding on getting something done in a certain time, not being given the luxury of invention and being braver. Now I think I certainly feel afraid to make one step wrong, whereas before I didn't think about it. I just thought, this is what I want to do and we'll all make it happen together. Now I don't want to put a foot wrong. And the fact is, rehearsal periods for shows almost definitely, and in fact I am absolutely sure of it, have been cut down immeasurably. I can't remember making a musical with less than 6 weeks rehearsal. I mean, and 6 weeks was the minimum. Now I'm asked to make a musical in 3 weeks. And I feel that I'm cheating, that I'm cutting short what really is inside me. No matter how much prep work I go away and do, you really need people to prep. So I don't think that the delicious opportunity is quite there. It's probably very different in America because they have a very strong union there. And directors and choreographers are given a great sense of power because of that to demand what they want. Here, you feel like you have to fit in.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's a sense, isn't there, that people sort of have an idea what they want a certain production to be or how they want it to look like or feel. And actually what you're saying is, well, give me 6-8 weeks in a room, I can do all of that, but I might be able to take it to the next level, a level that we never even imagined, because we're going to be creative and we're going to go into this with the spirit of adventure and sort of creativity. And we're not quite sure where we're going to end up, but we know it's going to be pretty special. Whereas, yeah, as you say, just feel like it's sort of, 3 or 4 weeks and you're going to deliver, a certain product. And it does, you're right. I mean, it means that you're not able to fully, you've got to stage the thing, you've got to get it on. You can't necessarily experiment too much or take risks or use the time for workshop.
Yeah. And we both shows with Greece that I did in the 90s, and Saturday Night Fever, I was given 4 weeks pre-rehearsal with Greece for the very, very difficult jives with lifts and throws, so that all of the people that we loved, that could sing, could dance and act, were given that 1 month just to work on just incredible throw lifts in safety. And the same thing with Saturday Night Fever. It was all about hustles. And in hustles, there are lots and lots of lifts of the American hustles of the time. And we were given, again, a month just to come in every day and work the hustles. That is a gift now that I treasured so much. Because now you're asking dancers to do things in the shortest possible time.
Yeah.
The demands on dancers are greater.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Just thinking, just some of the amazing people you've worked with and your sort of reputation. I guess you're known as being tough and very sort of direct to the point and quite a formidable force within theatre. Have you always been that way, or was that part of, you know, when you were starting out? I mean, how many women choreographers, how many women directors were there? I mean, you really were breaking so many molds. Do you feel that you had to sort of be tougher and really sort of, you know, put yourself at the front in order to succeed and work with all those, you know, Andrew Lloyd Webber, John Huston, Annie, Trevor, and all of these men you've worked with? What's your sort of take on all of that?
I think being tough came from the way that I was disciplined as a dancer. I mean, my training was rigid, demanding, and we were all taught that you have to put everything into it. You have to work and work and work. So I think that was a real self-discipline. At first, I didn't really even think that I was the only woman working amongst men. I only really came to realize it. Probably it took me until Saturday Night Fever, which I was directing and choreographing, to really realize that I was in a man's world. I just accepted it. Yeah, I happen to be a woman, you know, in this world, but I had worked with all male teams. I had, you know, from Annie and Monty Python's Meaning of Life, Monty Python's, Andrew, Trevor, John Napier, Richard Stilgo, but I really became aware of it in Saturday Night Fever. And I think that was because I was the director. And I don't think I found some men able to accept that. It was quite noticeable. We will rock you. So I suddenly became aware I was the only woman, and I was tough, and I didn't stand for any nonsense, but I also had a fragility, whereas if I was screamed at, I'd have to pull myself together and go, right, this is who you are. So I started to think about it more and more and more, and then I began to think about it in terms of women and searching for women associates. I began to realize, my goodness, this world has a lot of men in, and we have to give opportunities to women. But I was quite tough. I always remember a comment Andrew Lloyd Webber said to me. And he said to me once, darling, I don't understand why all Gillian's dancers love her, but all your dancers are afraid of you. And I thought about it, and I thought, yes, Gillian has this lovely way, because she would discipline everyone, but she had such a lovely, sweet, girly way of doing it. And there's me, coming on, no, I want more, higher. And I thought, yeah, you're right, Andrew. You're right. And I think I've got softer over time. But I think in many ways, we teach and we find a different way to get people to give what we want and need. And I think that's been a massive turnaround in our form of theatre. And I much prefer the way I am now. And it's not because I want people to love me as opposed to the other Arlene Phillips, not at all. But I do find I found a way to get things out of people with a different tone, with a different way of encouraging them.
I think that's what I adore about you, and why I think we work so well together, and I certainly love working with you, because what I guess you've just described there is the sense of always learning, both about your craft and your work, but also about yourself, and not being afraid to change and adjust and learn and keep being vulnerable in order to grow as a creative and as a human being and as a practitioner. And I think that's what I always get from our experiences, that you are unafraid to, you're constantly wanting to learn, and all your magazine articles and all of your research, and always bringing new things to the table. And I think you could still legitimately say you're very tough. I mean, I remember those jive rehearsals in Greece where I was like, oh my goodness, we're going to have people carried out in ambulances. I mean, we're doing it again, and there's more corrections and more ideas, and it's going on and on and on, and these endless rehearsals. But the kids in that production of Greece we did together, they adored you, and they had so much respect for you because you were so rigorous and so disciplined and so clear with them about what was expected.
I think I find now with young people, you have to let them know that you care about them and you care about their performance. And I think I get a lot out of doing that for myself and for them, because you see the improvement, you see the growth. But yes, I am demanding, because it's a tough world, and people know that from the moment they get into drama school. This is tough, and you have to be tough, and you have to know that getting a job isn't where it stops. Getting a job is where it begins. And if anyone, and every one of us can look back and see all the jobs we didn't get, when you do, you have to appreciate it, live it, give your best from start to finish, so that you take it and you learn to be able to go on and improve for the next job. And also again, the thing that you have taught me is that you're the first director I'd worked with who was prepared to spend so much of your own free time giving feedback to every artist that you auditioned. And that was really something new to me. It was something I hadn't experienced since I made the film of Annie in 1983, and we auditioned across America and actually in the UK, kids from let's say from the ages of 5 or 4 actually, to 10 years old. And at the end of the audition, they would line up and one by one come and ask why they didn't get it, the ones who didn't get it. And I would sit there and I would, another one, and you have to make up, and no one had done that until I saw you do it. And it really kind of woke me up to how important it is. Let people know why. If it can help them move on, let them know why.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so important, isn't it? And as well for people's, I think, mental health. I mean, it's such a, or it wasn't until recently, all the, this idea of people just going up for job after job after job, and it's quite relentless. And I know that's what we're all signing up for in different ways. But I think the more we can, without being sort of, it's not about sort of telling fibs or sort of wrapping it up in sort of feathers, or want of a better analogy, sort of stuck in isolation here. I can't get my words out, but I think it's sort of being fair to people, and the more humility you can demonstrate, I think the better work you get out of people. And often people aren't right for one job, but then in 6 months you're doing another show and they're absolutely bang on for it. And so you want to have made that investment in people, because it doesn't just pay off for us, I don't think, whether they're working for us or not. They take that sort of sense of humility and generosity out into the rest of the business, and they share it with their fellow actors and other directors and choreographers they work with. So I think it can only be a force for good, I guess.
Yeah.
So moving away, I guess, a little bit from the musicals and stuff, I'm always amazed, like, you came into a rehearsal of My Beautiful Laundrette, and, I said, I've got a few ideas for a bit of movement. And there you were all of a sudden with Gordon Warnecke and Kathy Tyson and Omar doing, setting this wonderful club scene. And I obviously last year I saw one of the best productions of a Shakespeare play I'd ever seen in Nick Heidner's Midsummer Night's Dream at the Bridge. And your work on that again, working with actors and maybe people who didn't move as much, certainly not dancers, it was just extraordinary. How do you find that sort of difference, working with people who perhaps dance isn't their sort of first suit, as it were?
I got used to working really with non-dancers, I think through music videos, because some stars dance, some stars don't, but you have to make them feel they're the most important thing in that music video, so that the way they move through it has to be fulfilling for them, and they have to feel strong and good about even the way they walk. And when I work with someone who hasn't really had either any dance or very little, I always make them walk, because if you have a confident walk, people say they can't dance, and I say, well, let me see you walk. Okay, let's speed it up, let's slow it down. Right, let's set it to a beat. And people say, but I've got no rhythm. And I say, well, we'll just play, we'll just walk around the room. And then gradually they feel that walking to music is movement of a kind. And then I say, picture John Travolta walking down the street with a paint can in rhythm. Picture John Travolta going into the first 1, 2, 3 steps of a hustle with a clap. Suddenly, he's dancing. We don't know he's a dancer, but you can feel from the way he walks. So then I try to get them to do that. And then, particularly if I have, only 20 minutes to do something, I try to find what makes them feel good moving. I've tried to get them to either partner up or feel the music, feel the ideas, what would happen if a club, take them into a real situation to get the freedom of movement. So in many ways, they've invented what they're doing. I've encouraged them to stand up, to lie down, to use their arms, when you're doing something in a short space of time. But my way of working with non-dancers is always through walking to music and developing it from there. And you can have such a good time, because people can do the funniest things and add real sort of quirky moments to it. And yet, that they're going to feel safe within this moment in a play or moment in a music video. And it's about them feeling safe and confident. That is all that matters.
So there might be hope for somebody like me yet.
Nikolai, you bet. First day of rehearsals, we're going to walk.
We're going to walk. Brilliant. Well, we look forward to that. When we get Greece up and running again, we're going to be walking. Great. And so just a couple of last questions, Arlene. You've been so generous with your time. What advice would you have? I mean, you've talked a little bit about the assistants and associates that you've invested in, and I've come across so many amazing young choreographers who you work with, and you're so generous with your time in taking them to the theatre and obviously giving them employment. What sort of advice would you have for somebody who's looking to maybe follow in your footsteps or would like to be a choreographer?
I think the most important thing for anyone who wants to be a choreographer is try to attach themselves to someone that they like, they admire their style. Don't stop emailing, writing, tweeting, Instagramming, because if you can bond with a choreographer and then you can start to become the dance captain, the resident, the associate, what happens is you then meet people, you're being fabulous, you're working together, and then you're meeting people. And the people I know who've gone on to be choreographers through the process of who I work with is incredible. I mean, you know, James Cousins, who is a contemporary choreographer with a company, wanted to get into theatre, desperately into theatre, drama, musicals, and he worked on, first came to do some workshops with me on when Starlight Express was changing from the old version to a new version. Then we worked on Midsummer Night's Dream together, and now he's doing the musical movement for Book of Dust, La Belle Sauvage, with Nick Heitner at the bridge. And different choreographers have found a way. And if you think that if every choreographer, there are hundreds, you could get in with, then just do it, because it's worthwhile. And post your work. Don't stop believing if that's what you want to do.
What does Curve mean to you, and what are you most looking forward to once this lockdown ends and we can sort of get back into our theatres?
It's interesting when you say, what does Curve mean to me, because it's all about the message in The Wizard of Oz, and that is home. And I found working at the Curve something I've never really experienced before. It's a family theatre. It's a theatre where kind of you and Chris at the top of that tree kind of reach out and bring everybody in. And that isn't just the community and the audience. You know, my discovery of how many things that you were doing for children, for teenagers, that this place feels so supportive, but also the amazing welcome when, you know, I mainly work in London or USA and then coming in to the Curve at Leicester, you feel like you've been drawn in, and you suddenly feel like you're an honorary member of this family, and it doesn't go away. You're drawn back again and again, and you want to work there, and you want to work with you, and you want to start something off there, which is made at Curve. That's the only way I can express. I want to do more and more of it, and whatever I've got in my mind or whatever I'm creating, I want to come to you and say, please, can it be made at Curve?
Well, you're always welcome, Arlene. You're always part of our family. It's an honour to have you as part of our family, and it's just been incredible talking to you today. Thank you so much for your time and inspiring us and sharing your expertise and your life with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.